get to know Vijay a little better and to introduce him to y'all. So, without further ado, the one and only Vijay Kailash.
Kevin, thank you so much.
What's
It's
going
great
on,
to
man?
be here. Do you look great, by the way?
Thank you. You look great too. So, and I knew it was going to be a great day when I woke up. So, and I'm pumped to have you on here. You were kind enough to host me on your podcast, and I follow you on Instagram too and LinkedIn, and I love your insights. I know you're a really brilliant guy, but you don't wield your intellect as a weapon. You use it with an open hand. So it's really my kind of people, man. So would you just tell everybody a little bit about kind of who you be and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I come from the financial services industry. I fell in love with the stock market kind of in high school. I just realized, when you're growing up, your parents are telling you, "Hey, get a good job, or do well in school, so you can go to a good university, so you can get a good job." And I'm like, okay, what's the point of this good job, right? And it comes down to making money. And I'm just like, okay, let me connect all the dots. So you're telling me to go through all these steps to make money, but why not just learn about how money works? And that's kind of how this whole process started for me. It's like, how can I take the shortcuts to learn about money? And then I realized that the secret to success is through using other people. I mean, helping them. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And so when you buy a stock, as your audience probably knows, you become an owner in a company. So I realized kind of at a younger age that I could buy something and someone else will be running a company for me. They'll have their own customers, they'll have their own vendors, they'll have their own product to sell, and I don't have to do anything. And that frees up my time to go do something else that I'm more passionate about. And that just hit me. So I'm like, okay, how can I get as much money as possible and buy stocks or buy investments, something that already has its own system in place, so then I could back away and do something else more meaningful with my life. And that's kind of where the intrigue started. But then as I progressed my career, I worked in investment management at a professional level. I studied, got my CFA, which is Chartered Financial Analyst. So I went really deep into the professional investment management side. And I found a way to start helping people. How can I teach people what I know? And so before that, actually, I left my job back in January of 2022 and decided to start up a hedge fund because I found a great strategy that worked really well for my own investments. I raised some capital and I was able to, generate returns for my investors. But then what happened was when I go to networking events, I actually could not take a lot of people's money as investments because they were not accredited investors. So I thought about how can I serve this different clientele? So because of that, I realized, hey, let me start teaching my fund strategy so people can literally just copy and paste it into their own investment portfolio. So that way, hey, I can't do it for you, but let me teach you how to do it. So that's where my passion for learning and helping others came from. And I realized I'm actually getting a lot more satisfaction through teaching people than managing people's money. And so now this last about 10 months or so, 10, 11 months, my business completely shifted. So it's from, hey, let me raise capital to manage money to let me actually just teach the everyday person how to invest properly so they can be successful long-term. So investment management, I just love everything about it.
Man, that's really exactly what you put out there too on social media, and I think that's so cool. Who you be is what you're saying. So, it's really cool because you're coming from that place of service, and a lot of people, and not that they're bad people, but a lot of people are just so focused on themselves. It's hard for them to really connect with other people and to serve them. And I just feel like you're really driven to help. And I think especially when it comes to money, it's really confusing, especially if you don't work in the industry. And being a CFA, like they don't just give that away. But for anybody who's listening, could you kind of maybe distinguish between CFA and CFP for us a little bit? Because I think CFP is maybe a little bit more well known, if at all. I don't know, but I think I'm just really curious myself.
Yeah, so I'll distinguish between three of them. So there's CFA, CFP, and CPA. All three of them are in the financial services industry, but CPA is probably the most common. That stands for Certified Public Accountant. They're the ones who are doing your taxes or doing the auditing. If you have a company, they are your go-to for accounting related services, and they're probably the most common. There's CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, which helps with holistic financial planning, as in your trust or tax planning, kind of more on a holistic financial level. And they're extremely valuable as well. The CFA is more on the very technical investment management side. It's the actual, hey, great, you invested $10,000. How do we properly allocate that so you would get the best returns for the level of risk you take? And it's all about helping investors through on a more technical level, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
based on where
absolutely.
you are on that financial spectrum, you would go to different types of people, or you would actually use all three together.
Yeah. Shout out to the CPAs. My dad was a CPA, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty grateful, and I have a great CPA. And John, thank you for saving me. I had a great call with him yesterday, and taxes are about as much fun as smashing your hand with a hammer. But I'm really thankful that people are specialists at that.
You know what? I'll tell you something about taxes. So when I first started getting into like the tax world, I just thought I had the exact same thought of you as you. I'm like, taxes. This is so boring. Why does anyone like this? But then I realized if if you understand how taxes work, it actually helps you save money. Over 95% of the tax code is written to how to save you money. So I realized, I'm like, okay, if I learn about taxes, it actually has a material financial benefit for me rather than, oh, I have to pay taxes. No, tax code's about all the ways you can avoid paying taxes legally. And then after I figured that out, I'm like, oh, okay, let me structure my business this way. Let me do this instead of this. And it actually helps you save literally hundreds or thousands, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars based on the scale of your business. So
Yeah.
you're right. Taxes are kind of boring until you learn how to make money out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, he did like a huge restructure for me 2 years ago, and it saved me 15% a year, like off the
Oh,
total
that's huge.
revenue. Yeah, I mean that's real money, and I'm really grateful he did that because he's like, "Why aren't you doing this?" I'm like, "Because I didn't know you when I started doing this." So I'm just really, really, really grateful that people serve us in that way. But let's talk about the hedge fund a little bit because I think a lot of people have heard the phrase hedge fund or the term, but I don't really know that very many people understand what that actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's break it up into the two words, hedge and then fund. So let's talk about the fund side. All the fund is a pool of money from investors. So for example, let's say you get 10 investors, each person invests $100,000. Now you have a pool of $1 million. Now this $1 million is just sitting there, but you need someone to actually take that and invest it somewhere else. And that's where the investment manager comes from. So the investment manager goes, raises some money, takes it and invests in whatever their legal docs say they can invest in. And the funds can range from anything from investing in a farm or investing in real estate, investing in stocks, investing in futures, crypto, or what I do specifically is I invest in options. And so what we do is we raise capital, and the way we invest it, we're able to produce some sort of return for our investors. And so the word hedge, where that comes from, is hedging is just means reducing risk. And that's kind of all it is. So traditionally, when someone buys a stock, right, if the stock goes up, you make money. If the stock goes down, you lose money. With the hedge, you're able to add on something to this investment where if it goes up, it may not go up as much. But similarly, as it goes down, it may not go down as much. So it kind of lowers the volatility so you can have more steady, longer term returns. And that's kind of where the hedge comes into the place. So you raise capital and the investors can go invest themselves if they want, or they could trust an expert who is very specialized in a specific strategy to give the returns for the risks that they take for certain types of investors. And of course, nothing's guaranteed, right? Hedge funds blow up all the time. They take out way too much risk and the trades go against them and they lose all their money or all their investors' money. And there's other hedge funds that have been around for decades. So it really depends on how you manage the money and how you can make sure you have the risk parameters under control.
I think that understanding your risk tolerance is so crucial and who you're going to engage with. And just out of curiosity, how do you help people understand what their risk tolerance is?
Yeah. So when I speak with investors specifically, what we do is I show them, hey, this is our strategy. This is what we do. If you're this type of investor, this could be a good strategy for you. If you are not this type of investor, this may not be a good fit. So I tell them upfront based on what they're looking for. If they're looking for a short term, hey, I want to invest this for a year, it's probably not a good fit. Our strategies are meant for long term investors, 5 to 10 year time horizons minimum. And if they're like, hey, I just want this money for the next year, it's like, okay, this probably won't be a good fit, just because we do invest in the stock market. Imagine investing at the beginning of this year and the market's down 20%. Your investments are going to be down almost 20%. So if you need that money, you're going to have to take a loss. And so because we do use the stock market, that's why it's not a good fit if people are just looking for short-term investments. But over the next 5 to 10 years, the market will most likely recover and we'll be able to produce great returns for investors, assuming, we stick with their plan and everything goes well. And full disclosure, nothing's financial advice, past performance, not indicative of future performance, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, the financial world is a big fan of compliance. I worked in that space, and the fun police compliance. They want you to be super careful about everything you say, which is pretty good because they're really protecting the end user. Will you talk to us a little bit about options? You dropped that in there pretty casually, but I think might have lost a few folks with what that may be.
Yeah, so I'll try to break it down. So options are financial contracts. And if you think of a contract, right, let's say you're buying a house. There's a buyer, there's a seller, and you both sign a contract saying, hey, I agree to purchase this house from you on the closing date, right? That's what these contracts do. Similarly, with options, they're financial contracts which allow the holder of the contract to either buy or sell a stock. And so right now, let's say a stock's trading at $100. You could buy the stock right now, or you could enter into a call option contract, which allows you to buy the stock at a later date for a different price. And so why would someone want to buy a call option? It's because, let's say the stock again is at $100 and you think, hey, earnings are coming out or something good's going to happen. I think the stock's going to go to 130 by the end of this month, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to put my money in. So what someone can do is they could actually buy a contract which gives them the right to buy the stock at a later date. And so then if the stock actually does go to 130, because they bought that contract, they would have the right to buy the stock at the $100. But they paid something known as a premium for that right. And so let's look at an example using car insurance, for example. Every 6 months you pay your insurance premium, right? I mean, ideally. And then best case scenario, you don't crash your car. You just end up losing your premium. But if you do crash your car, what happens is the insurance company comes and they buy the car from you. And so basically what happens is with our strategies, we are the insurance company. If the stock market does not crash, we get to keep the insurance premiums. But if the stock market does crash, there's an insurance claim. We become obligated to buy all these incredible companies at a lower price. But that's exactly what we wanted to do because we're long-term buy and hold investors, right? So if you think about, again, you want to buy stock for long-term investing. You could buy it right now, or you could sell insurance on the stock market. So if the market doesn't crash, you make 25, 30% a year just in insurance premiums. But if the market does crash, you become obligated to buy great companies at a lower price, and you still get to keep this premium. So now you buy low, you wait a few years until it recovers, and then you could sell high. So you only do this strategy on stocks that you want to own and you're bullish on for the long run.
Man, that was a really powerful explanation because I've read actually a decent amount about options, and I don't think I understood it very well. And so that shows really mastery level when you can make it that simple, because that's a really complex thing that was pretty confusing. And like most people, I just gave up when I was confused, right? I'm like, oh, I don't get it. And so just maybe that's not for me. But I would love to know if you could go back in time and talk to, young Vijay and his beginning investing journey. What would you tell him that maybe he didn't know?
So I'm actually going through this process right now. So I've always been told, invest in the S&P 500, which for those of you listening, it just means 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States. So when you invest in the S&P 500, if you invest $10, you get immediate diversification across 500 companies. And so it's actually pretty low risk if you're a long-term investor. And so that's the traditional financial advice that everyone is giving people. But I think that is good for someone who's not investing at all. But I think a better investment, which I would tell younger Vijay, is use that $10 to buy a book and read it on investing. And that's actually what I started doing in 2017. When I started driving to work, I had about 45-minute commute, and every single day I was just listening to an Audible on 2x speed, and I'm able to finish a book, two books a week, and it was incredible, right? 45 minutes each way. You make a lot of progress, and the amount of information I get, it has absolutely transformed my life. I probably spent $400 or $500 on Audible, and I've literally gotten hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in future value already in return, just from $500. You cannot turn $500 into millions by investing the S&P 500, if that makes sense, right? And so it's in that short amount of time. And so the advice I'd give is, after your basic needs are met, use all the money you have to invest in your education. And I'm not talking about traditional school. I'm talking about learning how to invest, how to change your perception about how money works, and just broaden your horizons and kind of niche down, find a niche that you are really passionate about and go all in on that and become the subject matter expert into that. If anyone thinks about options, I want them to think about me, right? I just started this journey being more public about the options thing in the last year, but that's my long-term goal. Teach people how to use options to help them grow their investments safely without taking too much time. And so the advice, again, is just double down on your education through books, courses, seminars, and workshops. Basically go all in on that, and you'll get significantly high ROI.
Yeah, I think that's pretty brilliant advice for anybody, to read more books, because I mean, that's somebody's genius distilled down into a couple of 100 pages. And if you're in the car already, I mean, that's what I do in the car. So we're a captive audience. I might as well, do something productive. And plus, when you're listening to it on speed 2x like that, that's really good for your brain, because it increases your neuroplasticity, which we have to promote as an adult. Otherwise, it regresses. And I don't know anybody that raises their hand when somebody wants to get a little bit dumber. No hands go up for that, right? But we all want to progress. So that's really powerful advice across the board. All right. So somebody is listening. How do they know they're ready to engage with the one and only great Vijay?
Oh, dude, great question. So I've been trying to figure out how to position myself to serve as many people as possible in the financial education world, right? There's so many different aspects of personal finance. There's credit cards, paying off debt, buying your first house, buying a car, student loans, investing, insurance, right? There's so many different aspects, and I'm putting together a framework where I can guide people from the very beginning of personal finance to their end goal. And the end goal, I'm using an arbitrary $1 million, right? It just sounds fancy saying, yeah, I'm a millionaire, but it really doesn't mean much other than, cool, you have $1 million in net worth. But the true thing I'm aiming for is to help people achieve financial independence, right? And the biggest thing when it comes to financial independence is figuring out what your savings rate is. So you don't necessarily need $1 million to retire. You don't need 10 million to retire. What you need is to figure out how much you're actually saving and investing, putting away, and that will be the sole indicator on whether or not you're ready to retire. So let me give you an example. Let's say you make $100,000 a year, right? If you invested, or if you saved zero of that, as in you made 100,000, you spent 100,000, you would have to work for the rest of your life. You literally can never retire because you have no savings at the end of the day. And unfortunately, that's the world a lot of people live in. Middle American or middle income Americans are not set up for retirement because they spend almost everything they earn. Now let's flip it to the other end of the spectrum. Let's say you make $100,000, but you save $100,000. That means right now you're able to retire. It's because you have another stream of income coming in, right? You have enough assets to live on where you don't need to touch your salary. So there's a spectrum between saving $0 or 0% of your paycheck to saving 100% of your paycheck. And based on how aggressively you save and invest, that should shorten your time for retirement. So if you're saving 75% of your paycheck, you can actually retire in less than a decade, which is kind of cool, right? So you don't need to work until you're 65, unless you love your job. But the thing is, make work optional. That's kind of what my goal is, right? Because I feel that when people are no longer tied to money, where they're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay rent? Or how am I going to get the next thing, the material thing to survive? People can be more creative. They have a lot less stress. That means they can make the world better. And I think that's why I'm called on this earth to do. It's how can I help people achieve financial independence, not necessarily to retire, but then they can be their true, authentic, best selves because money is no longer a concern.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm thinking about. But again, my background is investment management, so I'm specializing in that area. But there is a whole aspect of personal finance. So to answer your question, to engage with me, anything about money, anything about personal finance, I'd be happy to help. But specifically when it comes to investments, that's kind of where my specialty is.
Yeah, and I love what you kind of touched on briefly in there. It's like, man, the whole point in life is to grow so we can give more, right? The more I grow, the more I'm able to serve. And man, it's pretty simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, but that's a really powerful way to come at life. You know, find something that you love doing, get really good at it, and help a lot of people. And you'll get so much more than you ever thought you wanted back from that. And that's a pretty powerful way to live. So thanks for sharing that.
Of
All right.
course, Kevin.
I want to shift gears. Let's go into the little maximizer round here at the end. I like to pick apart the expert's genius here on the show so I can learn from y'all. What's your best piece of mindset advice for somebody?
Something I've been focusing on is momentum. It's when you have momentum, guard it, protect it at all costs. The moment you lose momentum, and I see this with a lot of my peers, is they have a momentum for a week. They're like, oh my gosh, Vijay, I'm starting this new business, completely lose it. But then those who continue the momentum, they're getting exponential results. And that's something which I found for myself. I was posting consistently on social media. I was growing followers, but then I stopped. Now I'm struggling to get back that momentum. And I think that is a huge piece of advice that I need to give to myself. And I'm using that as a reminder. If you have momentum, guard it and protect it at all costs. Keep it going.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. I mean, it's so much easier just to get a fire a little hotter than it is to start the fire all over again. You know, it's the difference between getting everything together and trying to, get the spark and then get the kindling and then get the logs. Man, it's so much easier just to throw one more log on the fire when the ball's already rolling. So that's great advice. What's something in your life that's non-negotiable?
Geez, that's a great question. It's non-negotiable. I think the freedom to work on my passions, my projects, that is something I don't think I'll ever stop. Like retirement, we use that, or I use that term loosely. I left corporate America in January. You could call that retirement, but in reality, I'm working double or triple the hours now for almost none of the pay. And I'm literally paying to do what I'm doing now because I love it so much. And so it's kind of I think it is non-negotiable. I think I'm going to do this until the day I die, just because I love the work and being able to serve others. I think it's non-negotiable is working on my projects and my passions.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So we talked about books a little bit earlier, and I see a ton on the shelves behind you. What's a favorite book to read or recommend or give away?
The first one that comes to my mind is always Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that was a single-handed book which changed my perception of personal finance. And just like the first chapter literally starts with the rich don't work for money. And that just, it hit me, right? It's like, because I'm driving to work and I'm listening to that book and I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me re-listen to this. And so I think that book changed my mindset. My mindset just shifted my perspective on money and how the world works.
Yeah, for me as well. I was listening to that in a hotel room in Wisconsin. I still remember when I standing in the bathroom, like getting ready, and I started listening to that in that first chapter. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow. There's so many points in there that seem so simple. Like, how did I not already see that? But it's such a good book, man. I love that you shared that. Okay, what's one message if you could get out to everybody in the world? What would that be?
Start now, whatever it is. I know you're procrastinating, you're delaying. The perfect time literally will never come. And the moment you start, that's when you can start making the adjustments. Okay. You never leave your house waiting for every light to turn green, right? You figure out the red lights once you hit there. So the biggest thing is get in your car, start driving, and figure out the roadblocks on the way. But don't wait to start.
Oh, that's good. What does freedom mean to you here on the Unlock Your Freedom podcast?
Oh my gosh, freedom is being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. It's I feel free right now, honestly. I mean, after leaving my job, it's like, cool, I have my laptop. I'm going to Colombia, the country in South America, for a month in December. And I can't do that while employed, right? But that's freedom. It's like I can go work because I love the work, but it's just being able to travel, be able to give, just being the fullest life without having to restrict who I am, right? No more handcuffs. And I think that's the biggest thing about being able to leave your job and starting your own business.
Absolutely. And Colombia's got to be awesome. I have a lot of Colombian friends, and they're all like so kind and so much fun. So I can't imagine the country isn't
Yeah, I'm
just
excited.
amazing. And they're all like really beautiful too. I'm like, man, every one of y'all look like models, and you're really, really nice, and that's really cool. So a little stereotype, but I think it's, just a fun
I mean, it's a
culture.
true stereotype, right? I mean, my
Yeah,
girlfriend's Colombian. That's where we're going.
yeah. Well, good for you, man. All right, cool. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you, VJ?
I appreciate your time, Kevin. So I do actually have a lot of free educational content on options. If you go to optionsellingsecrets.com, you just um, put your name and email, you get a 7-day course and just learn. And at the end of it, there is an opportunity for you to join our course or mastermind where we literally hold your hand, teach you how to make your first trade. And I could literally just watch over your shoulder, make sure you're doing it right. Because if you do it incorrectly, you can lose a lot of money. If you do it correctly, you're going to be set up for life, a consistent income stream coming in. So that way you can literally find a way to earn income without having to work. That's the first step to financial independence, right? Not tying your time to money. And that's what we teach in the course. So that way you can withdraw from your brokerage account to pay for groceries, gas, pay your rent, or even use it to buy more shares and just continue compounding your investments. And of course, we teach it for free at optionsellingsecrets.com.
Yeah, very cool. I would take advantage of that if something VJ shared spoke to you, because he's the real deal. Just a really big brain but big heart. So the great combination of both. And yeah, not necessarily financial advice, but just a friendly recommendation. So VJ, appreciate your time, man. Appreciate you just coming on and just being real and sharing your genius with us. So maybe give us one more thought and we'll roll out of here.
Gosh, I'm lost. I'm just like I feel like I gave a lot of thoughts, but honestly,
So.
the biggest thing I could say is you all have passions and goals in your life. Figure out how you can make enough money on the side where you don't need to work your W-2, so you get that freedom and that time to work on making this world better. And that's what I'm here to share. It's I am confident you guys are able to do whatever you set your mind to, but just don't let money be the thing that's stopping you.
Well said. Well, thanks you guys for making it to the end. And, if you found some value in this, please share it out to somebody you think might benefit. And if you haven't already, make sure you go to kevinkeppel.us and download the free guide on how to connect with more people in powerful ways so you can improve every relationship you have. We love you guys. Thanks for being here. See y'all next time.